Okay, I'm gonna start. So now we're going into Scrum. We want to talk about Scrum. So what is Scrum, right? So Scrum is a framework within which people can address complex adaptive problems while productively and creatively delivering products of the highest value. So this is how Scrum is defined in the Scrum guide. So some of the attributes: Scrum is lightweight. So when they say Scrum is lightweight, it just means that Scrum is very easy. You're going to say it now. It's just easy. It contains 3 artifacts, three roles, and 4 events, right? So Scrum is very lightweight, right? That framework is very lightweight. It is very simple to understand. Very simple to understand. It is difficult to master, right? Scrum is founded on empirical process control theory, right? So it is like a framework, right? It is a process, like a process framework. It is not complete in its entirety, right? It's intentionally not complete, right? It doesn't specify a step-by-step of how you're going to do things, right? But it gives you like a guide, a framework. It describes how you should go about doing this, right? For you to uphold those agile values and principles, okay? So Scrum framework consists of roles, events, and artifacts. So Scrum roles, we have what we call the product owner, the Scrum master, and the developers. For the Scrum events, we have what we call sprint planning, daily Scrum, sprint review, and retrospective. And for the artifacts, we have what we call product backlog, sprint backlog, and product increments. Okay, so that is what Scrum is in a nutshell. I'm going to show you, how the flow works in a nutshell, right? But before we go there, we need to talk about what we need to talk about what Scrum is based on, right? So Scrum is based on empirical process control, right? Now, I'm going to try and explain this to you. Let me shut down my WhatsApp so it doesn't make noise. So I'm going to try and explain this to you in a nutshell, right? So what they are saying is that when things are more complex, right? When you are trying to solve a problem that is unpredictable, right? They're telling you that you can use Scrum, right? Because the way this thing is put together is like, Scrum is easy. Like, it is very easy to solve a problem, right? It also means that when you do Scrum, when you have a problem, a complex situation you are trying to solve, right? When you follow the empirical approach, right? So what does the empirical approach mean? It means that something that is based on observation and evidence. So that's what it means to follow the empirical approach, right? So now what they are saying is that Scrum is based on this empirical process control, right? And the 3 pillars of those empirical process control is transparency, inspection, and adaptation, right? So you can use Scrum to solve simple problems. But on a normal day, you don't even need Scrum to solve simple problems, right? Because you already call this simple problem. So you can solve them in a simple way, right? But you can still also use Scrum to solve those simple problems, right? Now, if you have complex problem, right? Complex issues, unpredictable issues that you want to solve or that you want to work on, right? You can use Scrum to do it. And why can you use Scrum to do it? Because Scrum is based on empirical process control, right? And which talk about these 3 pillars: transparency, inspection, and adaptation, right? This empirism, where does it come from? It comes from knowledge that comes from experience and making decisions based on what is observed. So let me repeat myself. When you have simple problems, you can use Scrum. When you have complex, unpredictable problems, you can also use Scrum. Why is it that you can use Scrum to solve unpredictable and complex problems. You can use Scrum because it is based on empirical process control, right? And this empirical process control, this approach, it comes from knowledge that is based on observation and evidence, right? So let me just give you in a simple term. What does that mean, right? It means that Scrum is designed in such a way that it can provide you transparency, inspection, and adaptation, right? So based on that, right, you are going to see a lot of observations. You are going to see a lot of you are going to make a lot of decisions based on those observations, based on your experience. Remember when we talk about that, you do sprint 1, you do retrospective, then you now start sprint 2. What are you doing in retrospective? You are trying to understand lessons learned. What did you learn from sprint 1 that you didn't do well, that can make you do sprint 2 very well, right? So that's what they mean, that you are learning from observation. You are learning from experience. We are working together. You are observing the way people are working. You are making suggestions. You are improving the process. You are improving the way you do things, right? So Scrum is based on transparency, inspection, and adaptation, right? So to create transparency, Scrum events and artifacts are visible, right, to everyone responsible for the outcome. You are going to see now when I explain Scrum to you. Scrum is so transparent in such a way that everything you do every 2 weeks, you go to the stakeholder to tell them, this is what we did in the last 2 weeks. Oh, this is what we did not achieve. This is why we did not achieve it. Is that not transparent? Right? Every day you come to the daily Scrum. I did this yesterday to achieve the goal, to work towards the goal of the sprint. These are the impediments that I'm having. Is that not transparent enough? Right? So the events are built in such a way to create that transparency, right? They are also, that transparency that it creates, it also enable inspection, right? What does that mean? It means that when we are having those daily Scrum, when we are giving feedback to the stakeholder every 2 weeks, they are inspecting the work, right? They are inspecting the work, right? So it means that we are transparent, right? And based on that, they are inspecting. Now, based on that inspection that they are doing, right, they can see what the progress is towards the agreed goal, right? So they are saying that, okay, this is what we agreed. This is what your process your progress looks like. Right now, if there is something that is not working towards the progress, or there are issues, right, now you can adapt easily, you can update, you can improve that process, right? Because anything that is not focusing on the goal, you can now look at the plan and adapt it, right, so that you can optimize it for a better outcome, right? So what they are saying is that at the end of the day, because of the way Scrum is, right, Scrum is based on this empirical formula. So you can use it to solve complex problems, right? So as you are inspecting, adapting, being transparent, you can see what the issues are and you can move forward easily, right? So you can use it to solve unpredictable problems. So that's why Scrum, a lot of people use the Scrum because they feel like it helps a lot to solve those unpredictable problems. It helps to show that transparency. It helps to give the for people to inspect the work that is being done, right? And they can adapt when there is a change to the goal, or there's an issue that is not making people achieve that goal. Okay, so but what you want to get out of here is that Scrum is based on that empirical process control, which is transparency, inspection, and adaptation. Okay, I hope that is clear. So the way we have the Agile values, we also have Scrum values, right? But these Scrum values are in relation to those Agile values. So if your Scrum Master is going to be telling you about this all the time, she's going to be reminding you that you guys need to adhere to these Scrum values. That means if you are working in a Scrum team, right? If you are not the Scrum Master is going to be reminding you of all these things. But if you are the Scrum Master, then you have to remind the team of all the Scrum values. So we have 5 Scrum values, right? The first one is courage, right? So what does courage means? It means that the Scrum team members have courage to do the right thing and work on the tough problems, right? So what does that mean to you? It means that you need to be courageous enough. Courage comes from the heart. Like you need to act in alignment with the belief of the team, right? So you need to do the right thing all the time. You are not scared of failing. Even if you fail, you let the team know that you failed, right? You need to be courageous because you are doing the right thing all the time. If there's an issue, you speak up that there is an issue, right? So you need to be courageous, right? The next one talk about the fact that you need to focus. Everyone focus on the work of the sprint and the goal of the Scrum team. So you're going to see this. I'm going to show you a video that you're going to watch, right? Everyone should focus on the Scrum goal. What is the sprint goal, right? The team needs to focus, no distraction. So as a Scrum Master, one of the responsibility is to try and eliminate distractions. Distraction will always come to the team. It's easier when they are collocated together in a war room. You can see when people come in to try and distract them in terms of maybe they want them to do other work that is not related to the work of the sprint, right? The Scrum Master can try to stop those people from doing that, right? But if there's a situation where you are working remotely, right? You can't see when someone go and call someone on your Scrum team, right? You can't see when someone is trying to call Abigail, right, out of the team, right? Because you guys are working remote. But what will you expect? You expect that in the daily Scrum, the next day, you expect Abigail to talk about the fact that Abolaji called her out of the team, right? Out of to do some other work, right? And you as the Scrum Master can now take that up to ensure that you eliminate that distraction, okay? Because as if you are part of a Scrum team, you need to be focused on the goal. So the next one we're going to talk about is commitments. People personally commit to achieve the goal of the Scrum team. So you need to commit, right? Remember, what commitment literally means that you join together, right? You are sharing our sincere intent to act and accept responsibility, right? So what that means is that you want to share the same goal. If the goal of the team is for us to work on the login page, you are committed to it. You are meeting that goals to satisfy the customer needs. So always remember, when you're in a Scrum team and your focus is to work on an instance in sales to prepare a page, you guys all have to focus on it because you have to commit to it. The next one is respect. Scrum team members respect each other to be capable and independent people. So there's one thing in Scrum, it means that every individual is unique. It means that everyone has capability to contribute, right? Every Scrum team members must respect each other because they believe that they are capable people, they are independent people. They respect each other's opinion, they respect each other's capability, they respect each other's space, right? This means that they take a look at how they view others, right? So you have to respect each other because everybody is a star. On that team, we are all stars, right? So everybody respects each other. So you don't see your other like, oh, he doesn't really know the work. That's not the way you see them. If they're having issues, you help them out, right? So everybody is capable, okay? Openness. The last two of the Scrum values is openness. The Scrum team and the stakeholder agrees to be open about all the work and the challenges when performing the work. So what does that mean? It means that we are open to everything. Everything, we are open to it. Remember, we do Scrum review, sprint review. I'm going to show you that, right? You are open to it, right? If there is an issue, you showcase it, you talk about it. You are open, you are truthful about the challenges of the work, right? So when the stakeholder is asking you questions, you are giving them updates on the work, you are telling them the truth, Okay, so everyone is open about what is going on. So those are the Scrum values. Okay, and if you're working in a Scrum team, you are expected to know the Scrum values. If you are going to be writing the exam, you are expected to know the Scrum values. Okay, these are the Scrum values you need to adhere to. Okay, now we're going to be talking about cross-functional and self-managing team. So a Scrum team is self-managing. They are cross-functional. So let's talk about what that means, right? So when you say a Scrum team is self-organizing, it means that the team will choose how best they need to accomplish their work. They are not directed by somebody outside of the team. The Scrum team decide how they want to complete the work, right? They have total autonomy to choose how things are get done, right? How do they want to estimate their work? It's up to them, right? What technical practices do they want to use? It's up to them. What how do they want to store their documentation is up to them. So if you are a Scrum master, your responsibility is to make sure that all those things happen, but it is not your responsibility to impose on the team. Your responsibility is to ask the team that, how do we want to store documentation? Do we want to store it in SharePoint? Do we want to put them in Conference? Or where do we want to put them, right? So everything, how do we want to estimate? Do we want to estimate in hours? Do we want to estimate in story points? What it is like, what works for the team, right? So that is not part of Scrum, estimation and all those things. So it is up to the team how they want to do that estimation, how they want to store documentation, right? So the team has autonomy. So that's what they mean by it is a self-managing team. So when you hear that a Scrum team is a self-organizing team, it means that they organize themselves. For those that have done PMP, you will know about what we call Theory X and Theory Y manager. A Theory X manager is someone that gives you autonomy. They give you work to do, and they give you autonomy to get the job done. They don't look over your back, right? A Theory Y is the one that micromanages you. So a Scrum team expects to have that kind of Theory X manager where they are not micromanaged, where they are given the autonomy to get the job done because they believe that they can get the job done. Okay, so that's what it means to be self-managing. Now, what does it mean to be cross-functional? What it means to be cross-functional is that in a Scrum team, they come together with different skills. So in the traditional way of organizing team, we used to organize team in terms of skill sets or job title. So all the testers, they will be together. Developers, they will be together. Business analysts, they will be together. But in a cross-functional way, right, they will all come together. So on this Scrum team, we have people that have developer skills. We have people that have tester skill. We have people that have business analysis skill, right? So they all come together. They are now members of the team with those competencies, right, that are needed to accomplish the work without depending on others that are not part of the team. There are some people that are shared resources. Remember when I was telling you about roles, I talk about roles that you expect to be on the Scrum team. Then there are some that are shared resources with the organization. They are not expected to be on the Scrum team because their role is just minimal. They do small things and they are out, like a cybersecurity analyst, right? They are not expected to be on the Scrum team forever, right? Because they are not going to be developing anything. When they finish with their security stuff, they go, right? But for the Scrum team, for the people that will actually do the work, they are the one that will actually get the job done, right? So those people that will actually do the work are the ones that needs to have that competency on the Scrum team. Oh, Shade, you said Theory X is the micromanager, right? Theory Y is the one that Theory Y is the one that I believe that you can get the job done. Okay, thank you. So those people on the Scrum team are expected that you have that competency to actually finish that job. Okay. So this is what a Scrum team is made of, right? So you have what we call the Scrum Master, the product owner, and the developers. So this is what makes up a Scrum team. So if they ask you that what makes up a Scrum team, what Scrum is saying is that these are the roles, the 3 roles that is recognized in this in Scrum, right? We have what we call the product owner, the developers, and the Scrum master. The product owner here is responsible for maximizing the value of the product, right? The developers are the one doing the developments, right? But this product owner is going to maximize the value that comes from that work, right? And one of the ways the product owner can maximize that is to manage the backlog, right? So the product owner is going to prioritize the backlog. It's going to order the backlog, order the items in the backlog, right? So that it can prioritize it and it can work on you can let the developers work on the one that will produce more value, right, to the team, okay? So the Scrum Master is more like, the Scrum Master is the one responsible for ensuring that Scrum is understood. So that's when they say that sometimes the Scrum Master is the teacher, right? Is a teacher. The Scrum Master is the coach, right? So the Scrum Master is the one responsible for ensuring that Scrum is understood, right? And use the skillful, like so you're making sure that the Scrum team understands Scrum, right? And you're not the one acting as a guide to them. You're ensuring that, okay, if they don't understand this, this is what they need to do, because you are like the master of the process, right? So you are the master of the process. You are teaching them the process. You are letting them understand that they need to have an agile mindset. You are reminding them about the Scrum values, right? Now, and the developers are the one getting the job done. And remember that the developers, they have different competencies. And remember that they are cross-functional and they are self-managing, right? So you need to remember that. Now, I want to show you what it will look like in terms of when we look at the cross-functional in terms of skills, right? So in your Scrum team, this is what you will likely see. So you will see what we have, something like the product owner, you have something like the Scrum Master, you have something like the business analyst, you have something like the architect, you have something like the developers, you have something like the quality assurance. So this is what like a Scrum team looks like. But remember, when you're writing the exam, only 3 roles are recognized: the product owner, the Scrum Master. Every other person here is known as developers. They used to call them development team before, but in the recent one, they call them developers. Okay, so if you're writing the exam, that's how you define it, right? 3 roles are recognized, but I'm breaking it down for you so that you can see that even though they are all called developers, but they still have different skills. Is the role of the architect different from developer? Yes. So in terms of the skill level, right? So the architect is the solution architect for the project. They are the one that will provide the architecture, the technical decisions. They will create the software models, right? So they are the one that will look at the architecture. For example, let me give you an example now. So let's say we want to implement Salesforce, right? The organization already have an architecture in terms of what their technical architecture looks like, right? Now, that their technical architecture is, let's say this is their as-is technical architecture, their current architecture. Now, you want to bring Salesforce into the mix. Now, remember that Salesforce, let's say, is a cloud application, right? It sits on AWS. Right, the solution architect will look at it and say, okay, how does this fit into our architecture? It will put another architecture in place that will now say, this is our to-be architecture, because we are bringing in Salesforce and it's sitting on AWS. How does it fit into our current architecture? Maybe their current architecture, they have Azure, they have OpenShift, they have all this. So they want to see where the integration will come in, how everything will connect together, where are the security points, and all that. The developer is just the person that will do the coding. That Salesforce that you put in App Builder, that you put together, you now want it to work. It's the developer that will build it. You know that developer I talked about, the front end and back end developer. That's a developer. Okay, that's what the developer does. Now, in Scrum, when you're writing the That's what I'm saying. I said in Scrum, every one of them are developers. All these are developers. Only 3 roles are recognized: product owner, Scrum master. All these other ones, they are developers. But it doesn't mean that they are all code. They all write code. Some of them are analysts, business analysts. Some of them are quality assurance, software testers. Some of them are architects. Some of them are full stack developers. I hope you understand what I'm trying to say. When you get into the organization and you are working, even though they are all developers, according to Scrum, they all have different skills. And that's why they call them cross-functional. They have the required skills to get the job done. Is it clear, Ejike and Ebuka?
Yes, clear. Yeah, thank you.
What makes someone a product owner? Okay, Ejike, I can see that. Loretta, I said, what makes someone a product owner? Remember all those things we did yesterday? All these things we did. Vision, strategy, roadmap, doing the backlog. All those things makes you a product owner. And I'm still going to tell you on the Scrum team what is expected of you to be a Scrum master. I'm going to show you all that. Okay? I'm going to show you all that. All the details by details. And I'm going to give you like a checklist if you want to be a product owner. Now, remember when you say product owner can be a Salesforce consultant. It can be a Salesforce business analyst. It depends on the way the organization is structured. So let me give you an example, Loretta. So let's say Loretta, Tony, Abigail, Adebayo, you guys are in a business area. Okay, in short, let's go there now. Let me just explain it. Okay, so I'm going to explain to you Scrum in a nutshell, right? I'm going to be using my mouse, so you need to follow my mouse. Can you see this place where we have what we call stakeholders? I just want to be sure you can see my mouse. Okay, good. Now, these stakeholders, right? You can see white, and one in red. So imagine this stakeholder. Let's say this is marketing department, or let's say this is sales department. They want to implement Salesforce, right? So let's say, Loretta, you are the one in red. We have Tony here, we have Abigail here, and we have Abolaji here. So let's say all of you are from the marketing. Okay, I'll do that. Bami is open. So let's say all of you here, you are from the marketing department and you want to implement Salesforce as a product, right? Now, you are trying to implement Salesforce. You guys will now say, okay, they've given you a Scrum team to help you with that implementation. You guys, these stakeholders will now gather and say, okay, so who is going to represent us on the Scrum team, right? Now, Loretta, they've employed you here in the marketing team as a Salesforce consultant. So let's say you're a Salesforce consultant, you're part of this team. Now, they're saying that who's going to represent us on the Scrum team, right? So everybody now spoke together, Tony, Abigail, Abolaji, and I said, oh, Loretta, you're going to be representing us on the Scrum team. So Loretta, from that point henceforth, on the Scrum team, your role is now the product owner. Okay? So now you are the product owner. You are going to have discussion with all the stakeholders to understand the product, the features, what we want to deliver, right? All those features, everything you want to deliver, you're going to put them in what we call the product backlog, right? All those things the stakeholder is saying that aligns with the goal of us delivering that Salesforce, you're going to put them in the what we call the product backlog. Now, when you have this product backlog, your role as the product owner is for you to ensure that this backlog is ordered, is refined, right? How do you refine that? You start setting priority. I'm going to show you a video of that, okay? So I'll show you so that it will add more light to it, right? You start prioritizing these products in terms of which one is more priority, which one gives more value to the stakeholder. What would they like to see first, right? Which one is more important to them, right? You start putting that together and you start prioritizing it. So the one that will give you highest value, you put it at the top. That's the one they will start working with first, right? Even though you put some at the top, it is still going to focus on the fact that is there any dependency or is there anything that will make the Scrum team not to be able to implement that stuff. But if there is nothing, the Scrum team will take it and implement, right? So imagine this product backlog now. You, Loretta, has this product backlog, right? And this is the Scrum team. So the first thing you do, let's say that everything you need to do before you start the Scrum has been done. That's what some people call sprint zero. I'm going to show you what happens in sprint zero when we start simulation. But imagine that everything you need to put in place, infrastructure, everything is done, right? Now we want to actually start the work, right? The product owner, Loretta, will come with this product backlog that's already refined with the items at the top that they want to start with, right? Those items at the top that they want to start with, there's something we call definition of ready here. I'm going to explain it as we go along, but let me just give you in a nutshell. There's something we call definition of ready here. So when we come to the sprint planning is the first event in a Scrum. If you are running a Scrum, the sprint planning is your first event, okay? Now, when Loretta, this is Loretta coming to sprint planning with this product backlog. At this point in time in sprint planning, Loretta will say, what is the sprint goal? What do we want to achieve for this sprint? Now, your sprint can be a 1-week sprint. It can be a 2-week sprint. It can be a 4-week sprint. But the most common one is a 2-week sprint, right? So the first day of your sprint, which is your sprint planning, the product owner will say, this is our sprint goal, and I prioritize the item I want us to work on, right? Now, the Scrum team, all these people in green are the developers. With the developers that have different skills like BA, architects, developers, quality assurance. These are all developers, and this is the Scrum Master. They will now say that, okay, they will start picking items from the backlog, right, that they want to do in the sprints. This item they are picking from the backlog, they will look at it and say, does it meet their definition of ready? So the team has what we call definition of ready. To look at it, they use something we call invest. I'm going to explain that. They use what we call invest to determine if that story is ready to be moved to a sprint backlog, right? If that story passes the invest, which is the definition of ready, they will move that story to the sprint backlog, right? Now, the developers will now say, this is what they want to commit to for the next 2 weeks. They will agree. They all have to agree, right? The product owner can negotiate, but at the end of the day, the developers have to commit. So the Scrum Master is asking the developers, are you okay with it? Are you committing with it? Committing to it? They will say yes. So at that point in time, they will finalize their sprint planning, which I say is the first event. This product backlog is an artifact in Scrum. That's artifact 1. Sprint backlog is an artifact in Scrum. That is artifact 2. Product backlog, the product owner, Loretta, is accountable for this product backlog. The team can help you work on it. The business analyst can write user stories here. They can put everything here. But this product owner is the one accountable for the product backlog. Now, this sprint backlog is the development team that is accountable for the sprint backlog, okay? Because they have committed to it that this is what they want to achieve in the next 2 weeks. After the sprint planning is done, the team will now continue to meet on a daily basis. right? And that is what we call the daily scrum, to showcase transparency, to inspect their work, right? They will meet every day to decide, to say, what are you guys doing to achieve this sprint goal? What are you guys doing? Everyone will talk about what they are doing, what they are currently doing, and what they have completed, right? That's what we call the daily scrum. They will continue to do this for 9 days. Remember, if you're doing a 2-week sprint, it means you are doing 10 days, because 2 weeks in a calendar working day is 10 days, right? 2 weeks is 5 days, 5 days, that's 10 days. So, day 1, you've done sprint planning. Day 2, day 3, day 4, day 5, day 6, day 7, day 8, day 9, they will do daily scrum, right? Now, when they finish on day 9, any item that they will agree that it is done, any item they agree that is done must meet what we call the definition of done, right? It must meet what we call the definition of done. So when all those things is done, then on the last day, which is day 10, the team will now have what we call sprint review, right? So everything we've been doing for the last 2 weeks, we'll now review it with our stakeholder. At that point, they call it a done increment, right? Now, this sprint review happens on day 10. What did you notice here? You can see that all the developers are here, the product owner is here, the Scrum Master is here, and all these stakeholders, Abigail, Abolaji, Tony, all of them are part of the sprint review. They will come and look at what the team has done. They will review the work. They will give their feedback, right? They will do all those things and say, okay, we accept it. If they accept the work, it will now become, they've accepted that increment, right? If they don't accept the work, they will give feedback, right? And if they give feedback, those feedback will go to the backlog, to the product backlog. So they will give feedback and it will go back to the product backlog for Loretta to prioritize, right? Now, after the sprint review, they also tell them that this is what we are going to be working on next. But based on the feedback, they might say, no, work on the feedback first. So Loretta knows that those feedback, she has to prioritize it at the top, right? So after the sprint review is done, all the stakeholders will leave and say till the next 2 weeks again before they come to look at what they have done. Now the team will stay behind, or they'll set up another meeting that we call the sprint retrospective. This is just for the team, the developers, the Scrum Master, and the product owner. They will now review the work they did to say, what did we do well? What are the things we did not do well? What can we improve, right? So based on what they can improve, right, you can see that they say at least one of the improvements should go to the next sprint planning. But right now, Scrum, so they say it doesn't have to go here. That improvement goes to the backlog, right? It goes to the backlog, right? So now, why are they doing that improvement? Because they realize that these are the errors we faced here. How can we make it better? So they take those improvements, they add it to the backlog so that they can also prioritize when they want to do those things and move it to the sprint planning. Now, there's something we call refinements. In Scrum, they said, always make sure that you refine the work, right? But to make your life better, most organizations does what we call backlog refinements meeting. It is not prescribed in Scrum, but these are some of the things organizations do to make their work better. So they do, while you're doing this 10 days, there's in one of those days, you will do what we call backlog refinements, right? Why are you doing backlog refinement? You are doing backlog refinement because you are preparing for the next sprint, right? Because as you are finishing your sprint retrospective, you are going to start another sprint immediately. You are not waiting. So you start looking at the items yet again, you start all over again. So it's a continuous circle, right? You don't stop every 2 weeks, But as you're doing all those things, you'll be planning your capacity. You'll be planning resources, because you have to consider people on vacation. You have to consider if the resources will be available, right? So all those things I'm going to teach you how that is done, right? To be able to estimate how many resources you have available to get the job done. But this is what Scrum is saying in a nutshell. So this is Scrum in a nutshell. You have your product backlog, sprint backlog, done increment, they are your artifacts, right? You have your role, product owner, Scrum master, and the development team, and they are all known as the Scrum team. And you have your meeting, sprint planning, daily Scrum, sprint review, and sprint retrospective. But most organizations will add one more, which we call the backlog refinement. And I will show you when that is done. So any question, I'll start here. Could you please share more light on set priorities for backlog? Bami Zoko, was that clear?
Yes, it was. Thanks.
Okay, so we'll still talk about it more as we go along. This is just like putting it in a nutshell. Okay, Ola, is there a possibility that the product owner is also the BA based on your explanation? It looks like the BA role as well. Please, yes, you can also be the BA. Sometimes you have the product owner and a BA. The BA will be working with the product owner. I will show you a video on that, and you'll see how they work together easily. And in some situation, the product owner might just be one Oga. It's the BA that will be doing all the work. It's the BA that will be prioritizing, but getting the information from the product owner. But the BA will be the one prioritizing, making sure that the most valuable work is at the top of the backlog. Okay, is capacity planning the same as resource planning? Yes, it's the same. So you are doing capacity planning for your resource. Okay, so resources are the team members, right? So when you do your capacity plan, you are doing it for your resource. So it's the same as resource planning. Thanks, it was clear. What is the difference between daily stand-up and daily Scrum? It's called daily Scrum. It's not called daily stand-up. I don't know where that word came from, and everybody started using the daily stand-up. There's nothing like daily stand-up. It's called daily Scrum. Okay. Any other question? So is the definition of done the same as? No, definition of done is not the same as acceptance criteria. So remember those user stories that you have in your product backlog, right? Those user stories, each of them, we have acceptance criteria, right? Definition of done is what you guys are set as a team, that for every story, for everything to pass through this, it must meet that definition of done. So I'm going to give you examples of definition of done when we start the simulation. Okay, what does the prioritization be? A Scrum Master? Who does the prioritization? Be a Scrum Master or product owner? Everybody can work together to do the prioritization, but the product owner is accountable for that prioritization. But everybody works together to do the prioritization. You know why? For example, the product owner can say, oh, I want you guys to do the payment link. And someone would like to say, oh, but we need the infrastructure to set up something, the gateway, before we can do that. That's a dependency, right? Even though the product owner has prioritized it, the developer is saying that it's not possible because we need an infrastructure team to do the gateway. So that's a dependency, right? So everybody comes together during what we call refinements meeting, right, to get that done, right? But the product owner is accountable for that.
I think Ose has her hand up. Pardon.
Oh, okay. Let me check. Sorry. Ose, you can speak.
Oh, sorry. Thank you so much. Sorry. So for the product owner does the prioritization, and then when you're having the sprint planning, the Scrum Master is just basically they're saying this is what, like, I'm trying to differentiate what the Scrum Master is doing versus the product owner, because the product owner does like the product backlog and the prioritization, but the Scrum Master is just basically facilitating the meeting. That's what
it's facilitating the meetings, right? And the Scrum Master is going to do more than that, right? The Scrum Master is going to make sure all the inputs are available, right? What did we accomplish in the last sprint? It's going to talk about the team's velocity. It's going to look at the team's capacity, and it's going to ensure that the Scrum team agrees, they commit to the work.
Okay.
Yeah. So they are is facilitating and ensuring that all those things happen, that is committed to the work to get that job done, for the team to get that job done. Because the Scrum Master is one protecting the Scrum team. He's not making the product owner give them all the work to do. They want them to commit to what they can actually do, right? It also wants to be complex. It's the Scrum Master that say, you guys can do this. You've done about this before. What is changing, right? They may say, because or say it's going to be away for 1 week, so it's going to affect our velocity. Won't be able to. So they agree. The Scrum Master facilitate those sessions to happen.
Oh, okay. So the Scrum Master is for the Scrum team, and the product owner is basically for the stakeholders, sort of.
Yes, something like that. Yes.
Yeah. And then the refinement or the backlog happens, I guess, after the backlog is done. Is it after the sprint retroactive?
I will show you I'll use a box to explain that now.
Okay,
So just
that's
hold
fine.
that. I'll use the box to explain it now.
Thank you.
Yeah. I'll answer a question in the chat, then I'll let Ola speak. Tommy, more like product owner has the final say on the product backlog. Yes. And remember, the product owner, even before he had that final say, he might go and discuss with the stakeholder. He will go and talk to them, Abigail, he might talk to them, right? But on that Scrum team, the product owner has the final say. Prioritization can happen based on complexity, value, dependencies on the other stories. Yes. Remember when I talk about I want them to implement the stakeholder, the product owner is saying, let's implement payments, right? And the team is saying that, we need to, the gateway has not been, we need to make sure the gateway has been completed by the infrastructure team. That's a dependency, right? So even though it's of high value to the product owner, but there's a bit of complexity and dependency, right? So another story might be worked on over that, right? Because there are some stories that needs to be completed. So yes, prioritization can be based on complexity, value, and dependencies. Are there instances where the project sponsor is different from the product owner? Sure, very sure. The person dropping the money is sometimes very much different from the product owner, very much. What is the third artifact? So we have the product backlog as the first artifact, sprint backlog as the second artifact. The third one is done increments. This done increments. At the end of your sprints, you come up with what we call done increments. They are totally different. This project sponsor is likely executive operating at the strategic level and is not involved in the day-to-day aspect of the project. Yes. So correct, Shade. Ola?
Hi, Florence. Thank you very much for a very interactive class. I enjoy your class so much. Thank you. So my question is, for the Scrum Master, is this heavy on documentation, or the Scrum Master just facilitates, like, to ensure that all the requirement gathering and the different phases in the Scrum life cycle is met? Or how does that work? I just need more clarity on that. Thank you.
So you're saying that that does the Scrum Master focus on documentation?
Yes, like, is the Scrum Master role heavy on documentation with regards to the stages in the Scrum phase? Or,
So,
yeah.
in my experience, right, a good Scrum Master wants to make sure the documentations are done, because the developers don't like to get it done. Okay, so a good Scrum Master wants to ensure that the documentation are done, right? So you can enforce it by making sure that they put it in the product backlog, like some of the documentation that needs to happen, right? Sometimes if you are also good, you can help them, put it in place, especially when they see that the Scrum Master is helping them. The team also appreciates it, right? So if you don't want to do it, it's fine. But most time I've seen the Scrum Master helping a lot when it comes to documentation, compliance, getting the compliance done, and all those kind of things, right? Because the team sees those things as impediments. They don't want to do it, right? So the Scrum Master makes sure that it helps the team to remove impediments, right? Now, you can show it to them and make sure that they do it. And if you have that capacity, you can also help them to do it. But it's not like it is your responsibility, okay? But
Okay.
anyway, you have to remove those impediments, okay?
Thank you very much.
Yes. Becca, you said that can we use WS in prioritization? This is WSJF. Is safe? That's safe. So it depends on the organization, right? As I said, depending on the organization, right? So maybe if they are using safe, mostly it's safe that promote WSJF, right? What I'm saying that what Scrum says is that for that prioritization is not the product owner will decide, right? It can even be just by discussing with the stakeholders, and they will tell you this is what they need done first, right? And that is what they want to do. But they might not be able to do it maybe based on dependencies, but they decide. The sponsor might say this is what they want to see, right? And the product owner takes that to the team and prioritize it, right? So WSJF is like they preach through, that's too safe. And you know why? Because they have different teams working on maybe the same product. So they try to do that, right? So that they are able to prioritize the work, which one goes first and all that. But at the end of the day, in Scrum, that is not is not prescribed, right? So what Shade said the other time is what is majorly used to determine prioritization. So how complex is the work? What is the dependency? What are the dependency? What value, right? So value comes first. Value is the first thing, right? So yes, this is what will give us the most value, but how complex is it? Is there any dependency, right? So based on that, the product owner will order the work in that order for the team to work on. Okay. Education, Florence, are you currently a Scrum Master? So I work as a project manager / Scrum Master, but right now I've moved. So because I'm managing a program now, so I'm more like a senior project manager. But I used to work as a Scrum Master for like 2 years. So I'm just changing this month away from managing Scrum teams. Any other question? Okay, so before we move on, I want to show you, I know someone asked a question the other time regarding when do you do your product backlog refinement. So let me show you that before we move on. I'm going to share my screen so you can see my board, okay? So can you see my board?
Yes.
Okay, good. So remember, we talked about the fact you can have 1 week sprint, 2 week sprint, 4 week sprint, but we said the most common one is the 2 week sprint. So I want to put together a 2 week sprint. So let's do that, okay? So let's say this is your day 1, right? This is your day 2. Remember, this is your day 3. This is your day 4. This is your day 5. This is your day 6. This is your day 7. This is your day 8. This is your day 9. This is your day 10. Right? You know why it is 10 days, right? You guys understand why it is 10 days? 2 weeks. Okay. Your day 1, you do what we call sprint planning. So that's what you do in day 1. You do your sprint planning, right? You make sure that, okay, this is it, right? Everyone attend this the sprint planning. You do your work, you plan for the work you want to do, right? At the end of the day, you have what we call your sprint backlog, right? Remember, you are coming with a product backlog. You get your item, do your goals, do your sprint planning. On day 2, you do what we call daily scrum. On day 3, you do your daily scrum. Your daily scrum is like 15 minutes. Daily scrum. Daily scrum. Your day 6, daily scrum. Day 7, daily scrum. Day 8, daily scrum. Day 9, daily scrum. On day 10, you do what we call sprint review. After sprint review, then you now do sprint retrospective, right? This is what you're going to do in, day out. So what the team, what they do is, on day 5, they will do what we call backlog refinement. Or on day 6, they will do backlog refinement, or day 7, depending on the way your organization wants it. So on day 5 or day 6 or day 7 or twice. So I used to do backlog refinement 2 times, right? Two times. So the first one, it will just be product owner, scrum master, business analyst, right? And sometimes the architects. Then the second one, everybody, the scrum team, right? So, you know, this is sprint planning, daily scrum, 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 sprint review, sprint retrospective. But within that 10 days, we'll pick 2 days there. We'll do our backlog refinement meetings, right? So that by the time we get to day 10, we are going to start another sprint 1. Our backlog, product backlog that we've refined here is ready for this sprint. We start another sprint again, sprint planning, daily scrum, daily scrum, daily scrum, like that, right? When we get to day 5, we'll do backlog refinement. Day 6, backlog refinement. So our product backlog is ready. As we are finishing this sprint, it is ready to start a new sprint. Okay? So do you see when the team, when they do that backlog refinement, within, as the work is going on, they have other meetings set up for that refinement meeting? Is it clear?
Sorry, this refinement is based on, so like, because for the product backlog, you've divided the things. It's okay, maybe we're doing the link within the 2 weeks. And then maybe we're doing the next one within the next 2 weeks, right? So this refinement, is it gonna be, you are saying, okay, we see how the link is going, we're gonna finish on time. Maybe we can take this other one during this week? Or like, what are we refining in the backlog?
We are refining, you know, this product backlog that we have, this product backlog, we have items, plenty items, right? But it doesn't mean that we've prioritized everything. We might just have prioritized these 3 to say this is of the higher value. These are the things we want to do in the next sprint, right? Now, as another sprint is about to happen, you will prioritize the work, because as you do your sprint review, you're going to get feedback. Those feedback will go into this place, right? So you will prioritize which are the ones you want to do first, right? So that when you get to sprint planning, is the one that you've prioritized, you take into your sprint planning.
Okay, you're planning for the future. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
So yes, Tommy, the backlog refinement can vary in timing day between different sprints, and yes, but it is always good you have the same time. Let your team people get used to it, right? Having the same time, that consistency helps the team, right? You can decide to be doing it anyhow you want, but it's always good to have a consistency time. Well, based on my experience, okay? Ola.
Yeah, I'm thinking for a very complex project, right? And are there times that you would have to go past the 2 weeks sprint cycle, or it must be 2 weeks? Because, for example, if you have maybe like 3 items on the agenda for the 2 weeks and you're unable to solve the 2, do you just move to the next phase, or is it flexible enough for you to stretch a little bit?
So consistency is good.
Okay.
before you start your sprint, you guys will have agreed, do we want to do a 2-week sprint or do we want to do a 4-week sprint? If you realize that 2-week sprint doesn't work for you, there's no point. You can do 3-week sprint or 4-week sprint, but that consistency is good. So if you do a 2-week sprint, right, nothing, maybe you are not achieving anything in that 2 weeks, the product owner can cancel that sprint, right?
Okay.
If the product owner cancels that sprint, in your retrospective, you guys are going to discuss, why didn't you guys achieve anything? What cost it? Then you're going to improve on it. You might decide that, yes, we are still going to stick with our 2 weeks, but we'll improve the way we bring our stories into the sprints. We want to make sure that it follows that definition of ready, so that when it gets into the sprint, we can get the job done. But consistency is good. So if we agree it's 2 weeks, it's 2 weeks.
Perfect. That makes more sense. I just wanted to understand the flexibility around, when we're discussing the light of, okay, I know this is not agile, like waterfall or agile methodology. So I'm trying to apply, okay, is there flexibility around this, or you can just go with the flow? But it makes sense the way you explained it. Thanks.
Yeah. Okay, good. Loretta.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear.
All right, sorry. I just want to ask, based on your explanation right now, would it be fair to say that Scrum is a continuous process? Because you just said that after the 2 weeks, before the end of the 2 weeks, you start to do your backlog refinement. So would it be okay to say that it's a continuous process? Does it have an end?
It's a continuous process.
It never ends. Wow. So if they finish the 2 weeks, then they start another backlog, and then they finish that, then they continue with another one.
Yes. So that's why you have to do your refinements before this day 10, because when day 10 is done, you start sprint planning again. So what I do for my Scrum team is I try to make sure that if I can end my Scrum on, okay, some people don't like it, so I change it for some team. For some of the other team, I would make sure that this day 10 is a Friday, so that on Monday, at least all of us will have rested well before coming in again, right? But some people don't like doing planning on Monday. They feel it's too stressful, right? So you have to understand your team, right? So the way depending on your team, right, what works for you guys. But as you're finishing your retrospective, right, on day 10, day 1, you're starting your sprint planning again. It's continuous.
So does the project not end? Like, because I'm just trying to wrap my head around it. Does the project have an end?
So that's why I said it depends, right? If you are doing a project and they are using Scrum, right, the project will end and they will pass it over to operations, right? So let's say you are running a project. If that project is going to end, right, they will use a Scrum. Maybe they use Scrum to deliver that project and it ends, right? Where it doesn't end is when you are running a product, right? Remember that product, you continue to use it until the end of life, until like it retires that product, right? So new features will be implemented. New features, like look, imagine someone working in Facebook, right? And you are in a Scrum team there. Is it going to end?
No, it won't end. Continuous.
Yes, it continues until nobody uses Facebook anymore. Then that Scrum team can be disbanded. Okay?
Makes sense. Thank you.
Yeah. So AGK said, is agenda discussion for daily Scrum for day 1 different from day 2, or is it the same from day 1 to daily 5? Meaning, no, it's the same. It's the same. So you want to find out, right? What have you done? What are you doing to advance the sprint goal? You know, that sprint goal is what we are all working towards. That's our focus. So what did you do yesterday that helps you to advance that sprint goal, right? And what do you think you'll be working on today to advance that same sprint goal? And do you have any impediments you want to share? right? Any impediment that can stop you from working. So as a Scrum Master, these are the things you listen to. Someone is telling you, I did this yesterday. They will come today. They talk about what they did yesterday. They will come the third day. They talk about the same thing. Oga, is there a problem? You understand? So it just shows that transparency. So the agenda is always the same. It's just a 15 minutes meeting. If someone is talking too much, so you said, oh, please, can we put that in the parking lot? Can we discuss that after the daily Scrum, right? You're not supposed to come there and be talking about your own life history. Just tell us in synoptic view, what you did and what you're working on. Are you advancing the goal? That's the main important thing, right? So you let everyone speak, because why? Everybody, sometimes their bosses are there, like stakeholders will come, but they are not expected to speak. They are just there to come and listen. So some people want to show themselves and overspeak, but as the Scrum Master, you facilitate that session to ensure that people speak at the right level of details. Okay. Just to follow up, if we do not complete any goal in a sprint, are we able to transfer that unachievement goal to the backlog refinement and handle it in another sprint, or can it be prioritized in the next sprint starting? So if you know that you're not going to achieve a goal in the sprint, right? It depends. The product owner can decide to cancel that sprint. You might say, okay, let's just do what we can do and showcase it to our stakeholder that this is what we're able to do. We're not able to do much. That item can be moved back to the backlog. The product owner will decide if that is one we want to work on the next sprint. Because if you didn't achieve it that sprint, it might be because there is a blocker, there's a dependency that might not even be ready by the time you are starting the next sprint. So you might not even be ready until like 2 sprints after. So they just move it to the backlog, right? But if it's something that blocker is resolved and is something they need to work on, then you move the item to the next sprint, right? There's always flexibility. That priority is decided by the product owner, right? The product owner is the one representing all the stakeholders, okay? What happens if you're unable to have daily Scrum due to Scrum team work schedule? Emeka, do you want to speak?
Yes. So I was asking because you mentioned that we have to have a daily Scrum with a Scrum team. So what if everyone can meet at the same time for that 15 minutes?
Why won't you meet at the same time? Remember what we said? We said that the team has to be allocated to that project. So if you are working on different, please let them do Kanban. That means they are not allocated. At least you have to be 80% allocated. I agree, there will be sometimes you cannot make the daily Scrum due to some unforeseen circumstances, or due to the fact that maybe you can't even just make it to work, you're not feeling fine, or you're doing something, you can't get to the meeting. The team, so for me, there's something we have, I'll create a page, like I can create like a Slack page, I have like a WebEx page, where even if you can't make that meeting, you give your updates in that meeting. This is what I'm working on. This is where the impediment, this, you give that, right? Now, ahead, Tony, co-located, because normally Scrum team, is because of COVID that you are seeing a lot of virtual opportunity or remote opportunity. Normally, you're supposed to meet in the same room every day. So what will stop you from coming to that room? What will be your excuse, right? So there's nothing. You are all allocated to that project and you show up. It's part of your commitment to the team, okay? But because of these virtual ways of working, a lot of things happen. So everybody has like a room where they have to give that update. And as a Scrum Master, sometimes your team might be dispersed in different countries, in Romania, in India. You look for a time that is suitable for most of your team members to join that daily Scrum, okay? Loretta. Okay. Yeah, okay, Mika. Loretta. Or was that from before?
Yes, I don't have a question, so I'm just going to put my hands down.
Okay, good. Any other question? So because if you understand this, it's easier for us to run through the details, right? If you understand, the nutshell, then it's easier for us to now run through the details, right? So I will run through the details. I will also give you the document of the details where you can also go through it again, Okay. Any question? I'm sure as we run through the details, you'll have more questions as well. Okay. So I will give you 5 minutes, right? Take a break, stretch your leg, right? Then after that, we'll now go through the details. Okay. So be back by 9:25. Okay. Any other questions before we move on? Okay, so we'll continue now. So that's just Scrum in a nutshell. So what I'm just going to be doing now is just giving more information for each area, for the roles, for the events, and for the artifacts. Okay, so the Scrum Master role. So as we said before, right, the Scrum Master protects against outside distraction, right? So you want to make sure that the development team is striving to attain that sustainable pace, right? So imagine someone pulling them out of the work, right? They can't deliver on what they promised to deliver, right? So the Scrum Master will ensure, right, to eliminate those distractions, right? I'm going to show you a video on that, and you see how the Scrum Master did that easily. Okay. Protect against overwork and burnout, right? So you want to ensure that the team is committing to the right sizing of work, right? So that they are not overworked, right? You also want to be sure when the team is trying to become, they're just being complacent with the work. You will notice all that. So you want to have the right conversation with the team, right? So that they are doing work at the right pace, right? And it's sustainable. You own the Scrum framework. So if you're going to be working as a Scrum Master, you need to understand that framework very well. That framework, what the events are, what the artifacts are, and what the roles are. So you need to understand it, because you are the master of that process. Okay, you need to own and lead the process. That is your role as a Scrum Master. You need to educate everyone what they need to know, right? The development team, the product owner, the organization itself, right? So you want to ensure that there is improvement in their activities and interaction. So you help them to identify their growth. You continue to push them to complete the work, right? You enable helping others get the most out of Scrum, right? So you are the master of Scrum. So yeah, you will continue to teach the organization, teach the team how to do that. You remove impediment for the development team, right? So you serve as the authority of the framework. You uphold the Scrum values. You continue to teach them about the Scrum value. You continue to tell them how to adhere to the Scrum theories, the values, right? And you are removing impediments. Let me give you an example of an impediment, right? The team is trying to get someone from the security team, or they're trying to do some architecture work. They need to go to the enterprise architect to get approvals, right? You are the one that will try to navigate those things. Okay, when can the architects, enterprise architects meet with them? What dates are they giving them? You try to navigate all those things. You try to understand the organization processes to now see how your Scrum process, how the work you want to do fits into those things. Those things are classified as impediments, right? So you try to eliminate any impediment that the team might have, so that they can focus on getting the job done. Okay. Now, Scrum Master, you have different services. You have, as the master of the Scrum framework, right? You will serve as authority of the Scrum framework. You will teach and coach people on how to perform their Scrum role. For example, you need to let the product owner understand that it is your role to prioritize the the user stories in terms of which one is more value, which one do you want the team to focus on first. You need to be able to teach people what their roles will be, right? You help the Scrum team adhere to the Scrum theories. Your service to the product owner, you teach Scrum, you ensure the product owner understands, right, the Scrum theories. Now, if a product owner tells you that they are not coming for sprint retrospective, you have to let them know why they need to come to sprint retrospective, right? What is sprint retrospective? Why is sprint retrospective important? It is your role as the Scrum Master to teach them. It is your role to coach them, okay? Help the product owner understand how to create and maintain backlog. So someone was saying, oh, Scrum Master role is easy. Okay, if you get a product owner that does not know how to create and maintain a backlog, who is going to teach the Scrum Master? You are going to help the Scrum Master. You're going to teach that Scrum Master how to do that. So as a Scrum Master, you also need to understand how backlogs are created and how they are maintained, so that when the Scrum Master needs help, you are going to support, okay? Ensure product owner understand how to order product backlog item to maximize value, right? So all those things that the product owner needs to do, you might not be doing it as a Scrum Master, but you need to understand it, because when it's time to do it, if the product owner needs any help or ask any question, the Scrum Master will be there to answer, okay? The service to the developers. Remember, the developers are the cross-functional team, right? The people with the different competencies that come together to be able to get the job done, right? You protect them from outside interference, right, during the sprint, so that they can focus on delivering the sprint goal. Their focus is to deliver the goal. If there are interferences from different executives, your role is to protect them, right? Teach, you can, any form, I'm going to show you a video on an example, right? So that's not the only example. You can protect them in any way, as long as they can focus on the sprint goal to deliver, they can focus to deliver the sprint goal. Your aim is just to protect them, okay? You teach them the Scrum, ensure the development team understand and adhere to the Scrum theory, practices, and rules. For example, if someone in your team is saying they don't want to come for daily Scrum, you have to tell them the reason why they are coming for daily Scrum. You have to be able to explain to them why we're doing daily Scrum. Is your role as the Scrum Master. You look out for impediments. You remove impediments when requested. Sometimes the Scrum team will ask you, please, can you help us speak to the infrastructure team to get this done? So they request you do it for them, right? Because your job is to help them remove impediments, okay? So that the development team can focus on building high-value products. Service to the organization, right? Most organizations are still learning to be in this agile environment. It's also your responsibility to keep leading, to keep teaching the organization, okay? Now, in the documents I'm going to give you on Friday, I've put a link there that talks about the Scrum Master checklist. So if you're going to be a Scrum Master on a team, that checklist can help you, right? That's the question which you can follow to determine that, are you doing the right things, right? For example, is the product backlog prioritized according to his or her latest thinking, right? So it's saying that this part one, how is my product owner doing? You are the Scrum Master, right? You want to know, how is your product owner doing? Are they doing the right thing? So the first question is the product backlog prioritized according to his or her latest thinking? So the Scrum Master will ask the product owner, have you prioritized the backlog? Is that what you're seeing as priority? Is that what you want the team to focus on? So these questions will help you, right? So we have there are a lot of questions, right? So I added the link to the document I'll be sending to you. So for those people that want to go into Scrum Master role, this is some of the questions they can use, right, for those communication that can help them in facilitating. So these are some of the, I also added this to the document, is about 42 activities of a Scrum Master. This will help you, right? So some of the things they expect you to do as a Scrum Master is, when there is an issue, they want you to be able to review those issues. Sometimes it's not for you to resolve, it's just for you to be able to help the team to see the blind spots, right? You want to ask the right questions, right? So that they can think about it, right? You are also coaching the team. We'll talk about that, right? You want them to become an high-performing team. You want them to perform in, day in, out. You want to motivate them. So you keep on coaching them. You mediate conflicts, because they work in a Scrum team doesn't mean there will be no conflict. There will always be conflict. What are the ways you can mediate those conflicts? You're going to watch a video on that as an example, right? And there are also other examples. We can discuss it as well, right? You have to mediate conflict, right? That's your responsibility as a Scrum Master. People need to be able to trust you on the team, to come to you to help them resolve issues. And also, when you notice issue, it's your responsibility to ensure that it's resolved. Okay, you are constantly learning. You have to be in that learning space, right? You are learning, you're reading, you are reflecting on everything Agile. What some people do is they have different groups they belong to. Some attend conferences, some write blogs. So they encourage all those things from a Scrum Master. You help to further the Scrum and Agile community within your within your organization. You go speak on Scrum. You go talk about, you become like a speaker, or you help to facilitate events in your organization just to promote Scrum and Agile. Okay, so in that document I'm going to send to you, you'll see the link there. It has all the 42 activities of a Scrum Master. This will also help you if you want to go into that role. So product owner. Product owner is responsible for maximizing value of the development team. Remember, you are accountable, right? You are accountable for that product, right? You manage the product backlog and its content. Responsibility can be delegated to the development team, such as the BA, but you remain accountable, right? So you can have a BA on the team. They can be the one doing all the user stories, ensuring all the acceptance criteria is there and all that, right? But this is your responsibility in terms of accountability. You clearly express product backlog items. You have to you express them clearly in terms of, you put the necessary details, right? You put the acceptance criteria. They are all important. You order the PBI efficiently, right? You provide status of work and forecast, right? So you have to, you can provide forecast that, okay, maybe in the next 3 months, that's why they build roadmap. The product owner will build a roadmap, right? To say, okay, in the next 3 months, this is what it looks like that we might achieve. That 3 months, they might call it release 1, right? Another 3 months, they'll build a roadmap, they'll call it release 2, right? So what you are doing is you are ensuring that you are able to do all that, right? Now, the PO manages the backlog and not the team, right? It is your responsibility, but you can delegate that responsibility, as I said, right? You can delegate it, right? And remember, the product owner is one person, it's not a committee, right? It's not a committee, it's one person. But that one person, most of the decision might even be coming from different stakeholders and all that, but the product owner is just one person on the team. Also, I think we've discussed this before, some of the activities you would do as a product owner. Your vision, you put your roadmap in place, you are the owner of the product backlog. It contains everything you decide, everything you think we should do. It will be in your product backlog. You are the one that maximizes the value. It's your responsibility, right? You provide feedback, either to accept it or reject it, right? If the, as I said, that you can cancel the work, right, for that sprint if it's not delivering what is expected, right? You respect Scrum. Customer expectation, voice of the customer. Remember, I said that the product owner is like some stakeholder representing the stakeholder, like is the voice of the customer on the project. Stakeholder management, you manage the risk, you help in requirements, user story, right? You optimize the value of the work the development team performs, right? You think of the go-to-market strategy. I also added a checklist for you, right, in that document. So you see the link there as well. It talks about product vision. When you're thinking of your product vision for your product, do you have a product vision? You are working on a product and you're the product owner. Do you have a product vision, right? I can answer to questions about product vision and business model in a concise and inspiring way. That means you have your product vision, you have your business strategy. Can you answer questions of them, right? So those are some of the questions, right? I have a product backlog. You're a product owner. Do you really have a product backlog? You know, these are some of the things that will help you to determine that, okay, this is, I'm doing the right thing, okay? Loretta is asking a question. What's the difference between BA and BSA? BA is a business analyst. BSA is a business system analyst. So if you're a business system analyst, you have an understanding of technology. You have an understanding of the system, right? So for example, let's say you are working as a Salesforce business analyst. You have an understanding of Salesforce. You can become a business system analyst. It just means that you are able to relate with people in technology. You understand technology language. So all those, when they're talking about front end, back end, you have an idea, right? You can relate with them. If you put a requirement together, you can look at that business requirement, you can turn them into stakeholder requirement, you can turn them into functional requirements and non-functional requirement. You can put together a transition requirement. You understand that details in full. Then you are a business system analyst, because you are not just a BA writing requirement. You can translate them into technical requirements. Is that clear? Okay. So I also added a product checklist for you that you can use as well. It's going to be in that document that I'm going to send to you tomorrow. Okay, developers. We already know who developers are, right? They are the group of people with the skills needed to get the job done. That is who they are, right? Now, normally, Scrum says that developers should consist at least, that the Scrum team should not be more than 10, right? So the developers are also cross-functional. I think we've talked about that already, right? They don't acknowledge roles or title. I told you that they have skills. They can be analytic skills, software tester, developers, architects, but they are all known as developers. Roles or titles are not encouraged, but it might not be like that in real life, just for you to understand, okay? Product development, they create the backlog, right? So the sprint backlog is their responsibility for the developers to create the sprint backlog. Remember? So most time, even if they put items in the product backlog, the product owner is aware of those items, because sometimes they might have technical items they want to add to the backlog, right? So they are the ones that will add all those technical items to the backlog as well. So they help to create the backlog as well. Okay, but for the sprint backlog, they commit to it, because that's what they are going to do for that 2 weeks. Collective ownership. So there is no one person that is saying that I'm the one that delivered too much here, right? Everyone owns it together. If they succeed, they succeed together. If they fail together. Equality. There is no one star. They are all equal. A lot of things happens with the developer. If it's a new Scrum team, it takes a while for them to gel, right? If you guys know, because you know, normally when team works together, right, they will have things what they call like working agreements. They will have something we call team norms, right? Because as they are interacting with each other, there will be conflict, right? So they want to be able to have something that they are like is a norm, how they want to work, right? Some people, when they are in meetings, they don't give each other time to speak, right? So one of their rules might be raise up your hands before you speak. You know, those kind of norms, like just a way of working. They might say that, oh, anytime anytime you had something to Jira and you want my attention, you must mention me, right? If you don't mention me and I don't see it, that is it. But if you mention me, then I know that you are addressing me in that issue, right? So these are some of the things they put together. Yes, and Sade, yes, theory Y is the natural leader, right? So they don't like to be micromanaged, right? These are the people that they don't like micromanaging. They just want to get the job done. They see them as natural leaders. Okay, so those are the developers. So those are the 3 roles recognized in Scrum: the product owner, the Scrum Master, and the developers. But always remember that developers have different skills put together, okay? Now, sprint events. Okay, so we have what we call sprint planning. So when you say sprint is just like the heartbeat of Scrum. Is like a container for all the events. So when I say we're doing a 2-week sprint, so we're just saying that that's the container for the event, right? For the sprint planning, daily Scrum, retrospective review. So that's the heartbeat, right? So that's why I asterisk it, because it's not an event. It's just like a container. Okay, so the events are actually sprint planning, daily Scrum, sprint review, and sprint retrospective. I also asterisk backlog refinement, right? Scrum did not prescribe a meeting, but I told you Scrum said we should do refinements, right? But they didn't specify how we should do that refinement. But I was just telling you that it's easier to do a meeting in between to get that refinement done, right, before the next meeting. It's just a way for you to coordinate your team. How you do the refinement, Scrum doesn't care, but it's just saying that you should do refinement, right? And to continue to refine your backlog. That's what Scrum just say. So I'm just telling you that it's easier for you to have those backlog refinements meeting within the sprint, right? And if you can make it consistent, the team is already, they will get used to it and they will continue to refine their backlog. Okay, so let's start. Let's just look at it in a synoptic view, right? So in sprint planning, the whole Scrum team is expected, right? You need your product vision, your priority. Okay, don't let me bother with this because I'm going to talk about it in detail. So this is just, I'm just trying to put this together like a synoptic view of what is expected, right? So your product vision, your prioritized product backlog. You remember what we said, that you have to, the backlog is already prioritized before you start your sprint planning, right? Record of completed items. What are the things we've completed already? You might want to talk about it. Knowledge of past performance, right? What is your velocity? What did you guys achieve in the last sprints? What is your average velocity as a team? You also want to talk about that. Development team's capacity. What is your capacity for that sprint? Is everybody going to be available for the next 2 weeks? Are some people going to be on vacation? These are some of the things you want to discuss, right? And this is your input. Your output will now be the sprint backlog. It will be the team's commitment, the sprint goal, and your sprint plan, right? Daily Scrum, teams alignment, issues that needs to be taken out or to be taken offline. So when you hear things like parking lot, let's do that in the parking lot. What they are saying is that after the daily Scrum, we can discuss those issues, but the daily Scrum should be completed within 15 minutes. It's time boxed for 15 minutes, right? So if you handle it very well, within 15 minutes, you guys should be done with your daily Scrum, okay? Backlog refinement, you can see as required, right? As needed, you do it. The Scrum team is required. The PO presents candidates for next sprint. The team will evaluate those candidates, right? And they will look at the dependencies as well. All those things is considered, right? And the sprint review, you have the Scrum team and the stakeholders, right? Attendance by the right stakeholder, working products, right? You get feedback from the stakeholder and a possible input for the next sprint, because some of their feedback will affect what you want to do in the next sprint. And your sprint retrospective is just the Scrum team only. You get an appropriate venue, right? You guys discuss, you look for areas of improvement and what the action items are, and you add it to your backlog. Okay. So the same thing here, just in a shorter way, right? Sprint planning, that's where you do your setting of your goals, right? You estimate your user stories by assigning points. Now, all these things are not part of Scrum, right? The team determine how they want to estimate, right? Why do they do estimation? It just helps them to understand their performance, to understand their velocity, right? How are we doing, so that we can manage our work, so that we can know how long it's going to take us to deliver a certain features, right? Depending, right? So that's why they're doing those estimation, right? The Scrum Master will start the sprint. Your daily commitment, 15 minutes, same place, same time, right? What you did yesterday to advance the goal. What are you doing today to advance the sprint goal? What impediment do you have? you move your stories across the board. You see people working, you are using the Jira board, they are not moving Jira board. You're telling them, please move your stories so that we can get the accurate, burn down charts. Move your stories. So the Scrum Master, you have to tell them. If you don't tell them, you'll be the one moving the stories for them every day. So you have to keep telling them to make sure their stories are up to date on the board, right? Because Jira is not part of Scrum, but Jira is what we use as our tracking system. That's what most organizations use, right? So that's why you're telling them to move the story so that we can have the right reflection of our work. Okay. Remember your review. That's where you show your demo with your stakeholder, and your retrospective. You discuss what went well and what you can improve. So this we're going to practice in the simulation so that you can have a better understanding as we get along. Okay, so still the same thing. Remember what I said about sprint, consistent sprint length. If you are doing 2 weeks, it's 2 weeks. No new work is expected to be pushed. If you have agreed to do that work for 2 weeks, you get it for 2 weeks. If overcommitted, you can renegotiate. So if you feel like you guys have overcommitted, you can renegotiate with the product owner. Okay? PO cancels the sprint. The PO can cancel the sprints. Okay? Remember, the sprint is the heartbeat of Scrum. Okay? So this is what happened, right? The team will get if the team feels like, no, this work is too much, they tell the PO with the Scrum Master, they have this discussion, right? They renegotiate, they agree on what they will commit to, and they get it done. Okay. And remember, I said you can have a 1 week sprint, 2 week sprint, 3 week sprint, 4 week sprint, but the most common one is the 2 week sprint. Okay. So this just give details. So for people that are Scrum Master, what it will look like. So for your sprint planning, attendees, you'll see people like the Scrum team. We agree that the Scrum team will be there. Sometimes you'll see shared resources. So what do I mean by shared resources? For example, maybe the work you want to do in that sprint, maybe you need a security analyst. You're going to do some design by security by design work, and you need some security analyst. So that security analyst, remember, is a shared resource. So for that sprint, the security analyst will show up because they are going to be doing work in that sprint. Right, so that's why it means by shared resources. And as a Scrum Master, you should be aware of what is going to happen, so that if you need a security analyst for that sprint, you are the one that will make sure that that person is available, for that planning. Right now, the duration is 2 to 8 hours, depending on the sprint length. Right, so if you're running, because the sprint planning is time box, all the events in Scrum is time box. Right, so if you're running a 2-week sprint, so what will be the duration of your sprint length? What is the time box for your sprint length if you are running a 2-week sprint? Do you have an idea? So for example, okay, let me give you an example. A 2 hours, if you are running a 1-week sprint, right, it is 2 hours. So if you are running, okay, Becca gave the answer already, 4 hours. So if you are running a 2-week sprint, your sprint planning will be time boxed to 4 hours. Okay, if you are running a 1-month sprint, your sprint box will be time box to 8 hours. But it doesn't mean that you have to do sprint planning for 4 hours for a 2-week sprint. I dare not do that. You won't see anybody that will sit down for that kind of hours, right? So what I do is I break down the hours, right? So I can do like 1 hour, 30 minutes in the morning, then another 1 hour, 30 minutes in the afternoon. If we don't need additional hours, I just cancel that meeting, right? If you just in the morning and we're good, right? Nobody's going to sit down for 4 hours. But what they are saying is that you time box it. It should not be more than 4 hours. That's what they are saying. But you book a 4 hours meeting, you are the only one that will be in that meeting. Okay? So just remember. So what, Shade, you're laughing, is the truth, frequency once per sprint, right? So it happens on the first day of the sprint, only once during that 2-week period. Once you have your sprint planning and it's on the first day. and you go with your ordered backlog. What did we accomplish in the last sprint? Our past performance, which is our velocity. I will show you how that is calculated. Development team capacity for the sprint. What do we discuss? What will be done during that sprint? What do we want to achieve? What is our sprint goal, right? And they decide how they want to achieve that goal, and the outcome will be the sprint goal and the sprint backlog, okay? And how they want to get it done. That's what comes out of it. That's your sprint planning. During your daily Scrum, the same Scrum team, shared resources, interested parties can be there, but they are not allowed to talk. Only people in the Scrum team are allowed to talk. The rest can come and listen, but not to talk, okay? And the duration is 15 minutes every day of the sprint at the same time. Your objective is to be able to inspect and adapt the work. That's why you're doing it, right? Every day, every time. They will ask you, what did you do to achieve the sprint goal yesterday? What are you doing today? What are your impediments? After the time box, team member can continue detailed discussion to answer questions, solve problems, refine the design, adapt the remaining sprint work. It doesn't mean that after that 15 minutes, you're not going to have meeting again. You still have meeting, but what they are saying is that you can continue to work. Even the people can be divided. So people will go and be talking about design. Another person can be talking about maybe infrastructure. You guys can divide yourself, but that 15 minutes is for all of us to come together and talk about what we are doing, okay? And we use visual board to represent what we are doing, to show it, right? And now, because you know, we are very advanced, we are very technologically inclined, so Jira is the way most people use to do this, okay? Your sprint review, the last day of the sprint, include the Scrum team, the shared resources, and stakeholder, is 1 to 4 hours, depending on the sprint length. So if you are having a 2-week sprint, your sprint review will be how many hours? 2 hours. 2-week sprint, 2 hours. It doesn't mean you have to use the whole 2 hours. I mean, I don't even book 2 hours, right? 2 hours is just the time box, right? I think I book 1 hour, 1 hour, 30 minutes, right? So you don't have to use everything. Even that 1 hour, 30 minutes, sometimes 1 hour we are done. So depending on what we achieve during that sprint, depending on what we are showcasing to the stakeholder, right? We collaboratively inspect the product increment and adapt the product backlog. So the sprint review is meant to be informal, depending on how you'd want to do it. Sometimes I used to do presentation, right? So depending on the Scrum team, if I see that there are serious people, I have presentation. If I see that that stakeholder, they are not serious people, I might not have presentation. We talk, we just put the agenda in the email, right? So you understand your environment and see what works, okay? The PO will provide the overview of the sprint goal. The development team will demonstrate. They will do a demo of what they've achieved. The PO will share the product backlog and projection of what they current progress. The PO will facilitate the open discussion, capture feedback, right, and add this to the feedback, add the appropriate feedback to the backlog, right? The Scrum Master will ensure that this takes place and it is well facilitated and it is time boxed as well, right? So you make sure this happens, right? And the last one is the sprint. This is like a sample of what the PowerPoint look like. I will share that during simulation as well, a sample of that sprint review. And this is the last event, which is the sprint retrospective, right? So the Scrum team will only the Scrum team, right? So, but if there's a shared resource that work with you during that sprint, you might want to invite them, right? If they work with you in that sprint, then it's between 1 to 3 hours. So that means for the 2-week sprint, 1.5 hours, you're done, right? For this one, I use the 1.5 hours and I use it well because I do a lot of things. I'm going to show you what I do. Because you have to make the team interested. If you're not doing what makes them interested, they won't show up. They will just keep telling you they won't show up. But you know, make it interesting, make them want to come, make them relax, right? So that they can give you those updates, they can give you feedback, okay? So the Scrum Master ensures this event takes place and is well facilitated. The Scrum Master also ensures it is time-bound. The Scrum Master is the owner of this process. So you are an active participant. You have to make sure it happened, right? It happens, right? And you are the key, you are key. You can't just say you are not attending, you have to attend and you are you are active during this retrospective meeting. These are how retrospective is done. I won't go through this. I will going to teach you during simulation how to go about this. What happened during set the stage? How do you gather data? How do you generate insight? And these are the different types of retrospective we have. So when we do simulation, I will go through this one by one as we're doing that simulation so that you understand what it means to set the stage, gather data. So let me show you an example. This is it. So when you say set the stage, for example, you can see what we have here. Weather report. How are you feeling, team? Everybody will start talking. Are you feeling cold? Are you feeling cold? Sometimes you can even play a game. You can do two truth or a lie. You can do different things, right? I will show you examples when we're doing simulation. Then you gather data. So how do you gather data? You use one of these retrospective style. Stop, start, stop. What went well, like, lack, love, sailboat. They are all different type of retrospective. I'll show you with diagrams when we're doing the simulation. You see, when you gather that data, love, learn, lack, they talk about it. Then you generate insight from this data. They vote, they decide. Then after that, they come up with action items, right? Then after those action items, those are the words you're going to add into your backlog. Then you close the retrospective. Right? That is what you do. Those are the 5 phases of retrospective, but we'll talk about that during simulation more. And the last part is the remote retrospective. I added a YouTube link where you can see principles for a remote retrospective, because some of the places you're going to be working, you're going to see it's going to be remote because, you know, things have changed now, a lot of hybrids and everything. It's 10 o'clock, so I'm going to stop here and we'll continue tomorrow. Livingstone, you said, is production deployment sign off go live done during sprint review? Production deployment, not during sprint review. Sprint review is where they do that done increments, because what you achieve in 2 weeks might not even be going to production, right? It might be 2 weeks, what you achieve, you know, this 2 weeks, sprint 1, another 2 weeks, sprint 2, another 2 weeks, sprint 3, another 2 weeks, sprint 4. It might be after first sprint that you now do production deployment. That's what we call release. I'm going to explain that to you. Release planning, right? That's when you now do your release planning. So it doesn't mean that every 2 weeks you are going to production. In some fast-paced organization, it might be every 2 weeks they go, but it's very rare, right? So it might be after 4 sprints, you now go into production. But every 2 weeks, you have what we call done increment. You keep adding to it, done increment, done increment. Then after 4 sprints, then you now push it to production. Do you get that, Livingstone? So I'm going to explain that go live, production deployment to you, but it doesn't mean that after every sprint review, you go to production. Okay? So it's 10 o'clock, so I'm going to stop here. And if you have any questions, let me know. Tomorrow, we're going to finalize this. Then on Monday, we're going to start simulation. Okay?
Thank you very much.